This is the Annke NC800 and this is a low light camera from Annke and it has color night vision. But if you download the footage from this camera, do you hear anything? Cause I don't. Hello guys, LifeHackster here. Today we are going to check out the Annke NC800. This is an IP POE camera that is on the Night Chroma Series cameras of Annke and is designed for low light situations. It records in full color at night and has a 1.0 aperture. Also, thank you Annke for sending me this camera to be reviewed. They also sent me their NVR, which I'll talk more about here later on in the video. This is actually the second time that I plan to test this camera, and if there's some of you that are eagle-eyed, this camera has been set up in my backyard sometime last September of last year. I canceled the review then. The camera itself, hardware-wise, is pretty good, but the Annke software, like the one on their NVR and on their app, the Annke Vision, not so much. One of the big issues I have is the audio. The camera has a mic, but the event recordings will not have audio. If you open and record the live view, then yes, it will have audio, but not on the motion events and also on the recordings on the NVR. They don't have audio. And I think this is a software issue and not the camera. Let's do a quick check on the features for the NC800. But before that, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it yet. Thank you and I appreciate it. The Annke NC800 records in 4K quality at 20 FPS. It has color night vision. It has AI smart detection, which kind of works and I'll talk more about it later on. And it has a 124-degree diagonal field of view, which is 102 horizontal and 52 degrees vertical. And it has the Acme color night vision, and it has a 1.0 aperture, which the camera can see better at night. It also has the supplemental soft light, which barely lights up, but it does provide enough light for the camera when it gets too dark. Let's see what is inside the box. The camera is just placed in a brown box, and inside you have a quick start guide, and you have a disc, which I'm not sure if you all still have a CD-ROM drive in your computers, because I don't. But you have it if you need it. And we have a mounting template. We have a Torx wrench, and this will be used to adjust the camera's position. And we have the NC800 itself, and this has a bigger footprint compared to other bullet type cameras. All aluminum metal in construction. We have the camera lens, and we have the supplemental light here. And these are not spotlights, they barely produce any light, but it does improve the quality of the footage when it gets too dark. This camera doesn't have and doesn't need black and white infrared night vision. And here on top will be the mic. On the bottom, we have the cover for the microSD card slot and the reset switch. As to the wiring, we have the Ethernet port to connect to your router, POE switch or NVR, and we have the 12-volt port if needed. We have the mounting screws and plastic anchors and a waterproof lid. Annke also sent me their NVR with a pre-installed 2TB hard drive, and this is an 8-channel NVR. Design-wise, this hasn't changed since I last reviewed Annke's cameras, and that was in 2019. Time to install this. You will need to loosen the mount so that you can move the camera around while screwing it in using the 3 included screws. Position the camera and tighten the mount using a Torx wrench. As to setting up the camera, I wasn't able to connect the camera to the Annke Vision app. It just says operation failed. So I have to connect the camera to the NVR and in turn connect the NVR to the app. And with this setup, there are some issues that I found. And as I said earlier, no audio on the motion triggered recordings. Now I have to set this record audio in the settings, which by the way, it is turned off by default. So the video quality footage that I'm going to show you doesn't have audio. And to save time and instead of the background music, I'll keep talking. So if you open or record the live view from the app, there will be audio. But if you try to save and download the event recordings on your phone, which takes multiple steps by the way, there is no audio. And if you download the footage directly from the NVR, using a thumb drive and viewing it from your computer, and this is an MP4 file, it will show the thumbnail. But when you try to view it using the default Windows video player, it says file is unplayable and it's unsupported or file is corrupt. Luckily, it will play with a Windows Media Player or VLC, except there's no audio. Funny thing, the unplayable video is the same issue that I had 3 years ago when I first reviewed Annke's IP cameras. And I will link that video in the description down below if you want to check it out. At that time though, Annke's cameras don't even have a mic, so no audio issue because it wasn't even a feature of their cameras then. Now let's get into the night footage. Just to show you how dark it is in my backyard right now, and this is you will see the big difference as to the video quality of the Annke C800. And even my neighbor's lights, see, that's just how it is. It's not as bright as you would see it in the footage, but it is decently dark here in my backyard. First footage is just with no supplemental light, and you will see that the camera is able to see pretty good. And my neighbor's lights looks like bright spotlights pointing at my house, which, as you saw earlier, not really, they're just regular floodlights lighting their backyard. But because of the camera sensor and aperture, you will see the light glare. Now with supplemental lights, and first at 100% brightness, which is not really bright, it barely lights up my backyard, but as you can see in the footage, the light is actually too much for the camera that my face is washed out at 10 feet. Beyond that though, you can see everything in my backyard. Lowering down the light to 50%, the light is barely lighting my backyard at all. But the footage is still bright enough for the camera and for me to be able to see up to my fence line. Now as to the Annke Vision app, I was only able to connect the camera to the app when I connected it to the NVR, which you'll have limited access to the camera settings. You cannot set motion sensitivity or change any of the camera's image settings. There's an option for area settings for motion zones, but I don't think it works. The app is cumbersome to use and not really user-friendly. One good thing though is that it loads up quick and notification is decently quick too. We are going to test the motion alert notification speed of the Annke NC800. And I'm on my LTE connection and it is 1234. Let's check it out. There you go. I got a notification. There is no rich notification on the Annke Vision app, but when you click on it, it should give you a snapshot like so. As you can see, right, I'm here. And then you have a option to watch it in live view or you play the playback. And it does load up pretty quick. And this is, will have a it's pre-records there. It is 12:36 and let's see what the cool off on the notification, if there is any, on the Annke NC800. Well, there's no cool off, well, barely a cool off. It got me a notification and the same thing. I'll get a snapshot. Cool. We are going to test the maximum detection distance of the Annke NC800, and I've set the sensitivity to 80%, and we'll see. I'll start off with here in my fence line and see if we're gonna get detected. There you go. It's pretty sensitive. I got detected. It doesn't say that it saw a human, it just says motion detection. And you click on it. I can see myself right there. As to the smart human and vehicle detection, it is decent, but I do get false notifications. Not a lot though, like when the little squirrel crosses our fence, the camera was able to pick it up and thought it was a person. So their AI detection needs a bit of polishing. And I also have to dial down the sensitivity. The user interface on the NVR is pretty basic, but what I like is that there are a lot of settings that you can change in the camera, like the shutter speed, which when I was playing around with this setting, I realized I was wrong about the motion blur, especially the ghosting effect, like you will see on some cameras like the Lorex and Amcrest that I've tested a while back. I assumed before that to be able to see better in low light, their shutter speed needs to be slow, which will cause blurring during motion. But as you can see, the ghosting effect is different, and actually the opposite. With low shutter speed, the camera sees better, especially this NC800. But when I bumped up the shutter speed, you will see now that the footage is darker and you can see the motion blurring worse and there is the ghosting effect. The camera itself is pretty good except that for the price, which is on the higher range, it only records up to 20 FPS. This is a premium camera and it should be recording at least 30 frames per second for this price. Anyways, I will be playing around with some more settings on this camera and you'll probably see this again in my future videos. And I think with a better software, this camera can shine. And I think most, if not all people that buys this camera uses a separate and different NVR software or use the Blue Iris or similar to control this camera. and not the Annke app or its software. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.